What's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus with MetalTrenches.com. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel because there are plenty more videos for you to get into around here. It's that time again. We're going to do another ranking video because I just have so much fun doing these. And I wanted to change it up a little bit. Instead of doing a genre like I had in the past couple ones, we're going to focus on the man, the legend, Mike Patton, and his best albums. And I just have to say, I think Mike Patton is probably one of the best vocalists of our generation. I would put him right up there with classics like Freddie Mercury, honestly. Like, there's no bounds to what this guy does with his voice, the type of projects he's willing to do, from metal to classical to pop to rock. Like, he does it all, and he does it amazingly, and he's not afraid to experiment with all sorts of new ideas and new sounds. So with that said, let's hop into it. And there's going to be a few on this list that I'm not as familiar with, which is part of the reason why instead of a D row here, we've got a TBD, so to be decided. And to be fair, I don't think Mike Patton makes D-rated albums, period. So I felt okay doing that. So there's going to be some I'm just going to kind of toss in there just because I haven't spent as much time listening to them over the years. And in fact, I'm looking at this list that I put together and I'm like, shoot, I'm already forgetting what some of these are from. So right off the bat, the most recent Tomahawk album is one I think only listened to once, and it was quite a while ago because it came out in like 2013. So I'm going to hop that one down here just to save time. And then also his more experimental noise stuff that he's done with John Zorn. I've only become familiar with that very recently, so I don't even really feel comfortable going into rankings with that. But we've got Mr. Bungle here. This is their second album, if I recall. Mr. Bungle, great project, totally out there, something different, new for its kind. Second album's decent, but not amazing. I'm going to go ahead and just plop it at B, personally. I know there's going to be some major like Bungle heads out there that are going to freak out at my Mr. Bungle ratings, because to be honest, there's other projects of his that I am a bigger fan of than Mr. Bungle. The latest Faith No More album, so that's one of those projects. I'm a big Faith No More fan. I thought this was a good comeback album. It was pretty solid. I felt like the production was a little flat and it didn't quite capture the energy of the band that's usually there. And good songs though on it. I watched their live performance that they streamed and it was great. And mostly quality material. I'm going to go ahead and put this at B rank. It's a little bit inconsistent. Again, the production brings it down a little bit. All right, so now a big one, Faith No More's Angel Dust. This has to be S tier. One of the finest albums he's ever made, one of the finest albums out of the 90s, one of the finest rock albums ever done. It's a little bit experimental, a little bit metal in parts where it gets super heavy. You've got the softer parts, you got the funny comedy skit kind of parts. It's really all over the place, but consistently entertaining, amazing songs, so many great moments. This is one of his finest hours. This is another one here that I am not as familiar with, so again, just to save time trying to ramble on about something that I don't know as well, I'm going to just plop it there. Fantomas. I freaking love Director's Cut. I'm going to put that at S tier too. It's basically, if you're not familiar, a cover album of like movie theme songs like The Godfather, and particularly they do a rendition of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me's opening song, and it's just breathtaking. You've got Dave Lombardo from Slayer doing the drums, and then Mike's just doing his thing with all these crazy vocalizations, often without any lyrics. It's often just like noises and stuff, but it all comes together so well. Very captivating. I absolutely love that album. Same case here, another Fantomas album that I have not spent a lot of time with. I recall being kind of lukewarm on it, but I'm just going to plop that down here for now because I just haven't had enough experience with it to really dig in. We've got Lovage. Some of you may remember the Book of the Month music video, which is hilarious. I highly recommend YouTubing it if you've never watched it, but it's pretty funny. This is Mike doing his best kind of like Rico Suave type character, and still great vocals though, but it's kind of one of his more forgettable things overall. It's fine, it's fun, but nothing to really rattle on about. Another one here that I haven't spent much time with his solo stuff because he's done stuff in like Italian, and again it's in more of like almost like operatic kind of classical style. I'm gonna put that there. The first Mr. Bungle album. Again, I'm probably gonna upset some people that I don't put it at S tier. Definitely needs to go at A tier. This is groundbreaking stuff. Nobody sounded like them at the time. People still list them as a huge influence. I think this blew a lot of people's mind balls when it came out for those who knew about it, and it was still pretty underground. Like, I was pretty into all of this like grungy, weird rock music, even the one-hit wonders back in the 90s, but I didn't know about Mr. Bungle until much later. The only reason I don't put it at S tier is that I feel like it's inconsistent. It's not every song is amazing. It's not something I enjoy listening to over and over again on repeat personally, so that's just my input to it. Peeping Tom, this is kind of Mike Patton said him literally trying to do like his version of a pop album and what he thought that should sound like. So it's got those pop elements. It's got a lot of hip hop elements on it too. There are two like major tracks on here. Not Alone is a really solid one. And then the primary single that they did a music video for, the track name is escaping me right now, but it's a good song, and it's kind of humorous at points, but it's well written and it's catchy. And this was an interesting experiment for him. I feel like I can put this at B tier. Another one here from his more solo stuff, not as familiar. Gonna just plop it there. This is one of the later Tomahawk albums. Both of the latter Tomahawk albums, I'm not as big a fan of. I just feel like they didn't come together as well. They're not as interesting. They don't have the re-listenable value to it. They're a little bit more experimental, like purely experimental, and it just wasn't quite for me. Oh, we've got Fantomas in here twice somehow. My bad. Disregard that. The first Tomahawk album I really enjoy. There's some great clips of him performing some of the songs live, and he does God Hates a Coward, and he's got this crazy microphone that's like rigged up to a gas mask, so like the natural suction of his voice pulling in and out on the gas mask creates this very strange effect. And then he's got like a CB radio style recording. He did a lot of experimental stuff with the kind of sound of this album. It's a little bit inconsistent, but totally just, I saw that video and I was like, what in the world is this? Like that, I'd never seen something like that before. I thought it was very cool and got me very interested. I feel like it's honestly, even though it's a little inconsistent, it's worthy of A tier for just the level of intrigue, and it's also kind of a concept album about like a burgeoning serial killer, if I recall, and so it's pretty dark thematically. Mr. Bungle, their final album, kind of a classic. Still a little inconsistent for me. Not enough for S tier, but I feel pretty good about putting it at A. It's got a legendary status. There's that legendary beef, too, between Mike and Red Hot Chili Peppers over the similar titles here, because this is California, and it came out, I think, the same year as Californication, and they were already kind of in a beef about Mike feeling like Red Hot Chili Peppers were sort of ripping off his vocal style from Epic. and they kind of went back and forth about that, and it's entertaining to see interviews about that and stuff. It's like one of those it's almost like a rap beef, but for 90s alternative music. The second Tomahawk album, Mit Gas, another really solid one. It's got a man, there's a really good track on it that's super moody, and again, the name is escaping me, but they used it for the soundtrack of The Darkness, which is a great video game I highly recommend playing, that was on the Xbox 360. And Mike Patton actually did voice work for it, where he played the titular Darkness, which is like this kind of demonic entity that is like sort of half in control of your body, and you can use it to like form tentacles and attack things. It's sort of like a smoke monster that forms different shapes, and he's got this cackly, awesome voice. Like, the voice acting on that game is really awesome, at least what he did for the monster. And they used a Tomahawk song for the outro, and it fit really well with the atmosphere. Good stuff. Some of the other tracks, not quite as memorable. It's not as experimental, I would say, as the first Tomahawk album. A little bit more straightforward. I'm going to give it a B. The original final Faith No More album, if I'm getting the order right. I sometimes get album of the year and the other one mixed up. But yeah, it's fine. I feel like, again, this was them not in their prime, and it's a good album, but their production was lacking. The songwriting wasn't quite as interesting for me, more straightforward, and I think C is fine for that. And in fact, I would do that for King for a Day too, honestly, even though it's got some solid tracks on it. It's just really inconsistent, pretty forgettable, not an album I really come back to. If I want to listen to Faith No More, it's always going to be Angel Dust, and I might as well jump over to it as long as I'm talking about it. The Real Thing has to be S tier. He was less involved in the writing of this album. My understanding is they had it pretty well written already by the time they brought him on board, because they had dropped their original vocalist. And yeah, this is an incredible album, though, regardless. His performances on it are fantastic. Every song is great across the board. Great performances. You gotta love the track Epic, obviously, because he's got so many different voices he does on it. He does like the like kind of Red Hot Chili Peppers, like hip-hoppy type groove funk kind of voice, and then he's got that weird high-pitched, I don't even know how to describe it, voice. And but yeah, that track is not the only great track. Like, there's a lot of other good ones, and you've got Midlife Crisis is on Angel Dust, isn't it? I'm getting them confused now. But in any case, this is not a one-track album. It is rock solid, super consistent, fantastic. Has to be S tier. Fantomas, I think this is their first album. It's good, it's different, it's experimental, but it's not really anything super exciting, in my opinion. Nothing I really write home about. I'm going to put that at C tier. Dead Cross is, I believe, his most recent project on this list. He has done some soundtrack work recently that was really great, but I didn't even get into that here. Dead Cross is kind of a super group. In fact, I'm forgetting off the top of my head now all the people that are in it. It's pretty all over the place. But it's a pure like metal project, kind of grindcore, hardcore influences mostly. Some sludge type stuff too. It was good. I was excited about it because I'm always enthused about Mike doing a pure metal project. The guy knows how to do some pretty harrowing screams and other crazy metal voices. But ultimately, it was just okay. I was pretty lukewarm on it. I think I gave it a 7.7, so a C+. And so I guess it's fitting then for me to put it in C tier. I'd like to see more from them in the future, but I'd like to get a little bit more bang for my buck. Oh, man. His work with Dillinger Escape Plan, very briefly. Gotta be S tier. if ever his voice so perfectly fit a project and it was just a perfect storm of people coming together, it's this. Like, him being with Dillinger Escape Plan was perfect because you've got this group of musicians who does insane, sporadic, technical, and pretty experimental music, and that is what Mike has been all about at this point, and even up until now. So, man, what a great EP! Every song's amazing. His voice is amazing on it. There's so many like standout moments too. I'm the best you ever had. You know, that whole, what a great intro to a song. It just gets you amped from the first moment. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, honestly. So amazing project, amazing EP. I wish we could have gotten more of him doing this, but I gotta be, man, if there's big shoes to fill when you know, they finally got their permanent vocalist. I would have been nervous as hell to be him, man, but he stepped up, and it's clear that Mike Patton is an influence on Puciato. I'm not even sure how to pronounce his name exactly, but clearly Mike was an influence, and he picked up on those qualities and carried them forward and did an admirable job and continued to make the Dillinger Escape Plan one of the greatest bands of all time. But Mike Patton, unbeatable though. you can't beat Mike Patton. And then we've got this another album I'm less familiar with, and I'm just gonna kind of uneventfully toss it in the to be decided row. I'm always excited to kind of experiment with anything Mike Patton's doing, so I've got a little bit of a glut, and we'll need to review some of these other things further, but that overall is my rankings, my tier list of Mike Patton's kind of biggest, best-known projects. Let me know what you think in the comments. I always get those naysayers down there that are upset with how I put things down, and so feel free to argue, and in fact, I will once again leave the link to this template so that you can make your own if you'd like to. And you can post that. You can find us on all social media, and you can post an image of your ranking there and call me a plebe and say I'm no true Bungle fan and whatever the heck else. But that'll do it for now. This is Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.